just got done finishing some ferrules. We're going to talk about that. Some fittings from ages 24 to 74. And we'll talk about some golf club performance we saw over the weekend. All next. Welcome back to the Golf Shop. Jim McCleary here. This is What's in My Drawers Golf Talk. Why what's in my drawers? Because old club makers and club fitters are tremendous pack rats. I'm no different. It was about what was in the drawers of the shop. And it's taken on a life of its own. And we are now talking with folks from around the world about golf equipment, golf fittings, golf repairs, golf opinions, and some other topics in between. So let's get started. All right. So number one, finishing ferrules. I mean, I literally just sat down from finishing ferrules. I've got a set of Mizuno 225s and some Modus 120s, and they went together famously. But I went and I was doing the ferrules on the felt belt, and I'm looking at them. I'm like, well, they look pretty decent. They feel pretty good. So when we talk about a ferrule, we're talking about a fit. We're talking about this, right? That it's a nice smooth fit. It's symmetrical all the way around, and then we make it shiny and we make it look like that. Okay, so I do that. Well, when you use felt belts, you can groove them. And what I mean by grooving is you'll remove the face. It's like wearing out a piece of sandpaper. And eventually it's really hard to get it all down to the bottom. Well, I get it down to what I think is the bottom, and as I'm wiping them off with the acetone, I notice this little itty bitty ring around the outside. And the thing can't be that big. I mean, it's a 64th of an inch wide, maybe. Now I look at it, and finally the curiosity kills me, and I scrape on it with the edge of a knife, and sure enough, it's glue. It's just this little bitty ring of glue. Of course, my freakazoidal feral wanting to be right mode kicks in, and I clean it up. And I also change the felt belt. The minute I change the felt belt, it eats up just this little bitty lip, which is less than a 64th, and doesn't, it kind of takes it off, but doesn't get it all. So I scrape all the way around, wipe it down with acetone. Now I can rest easy. But that's just part and parcel of doing club repair. You want to make it look right. You want it to make it look like something like this. Now, this is a new build, obviously, but same thing goes as far as when we're doing something like that. And that's what we want to do. We did a lot of club repair this week, and that means digging out hosels. That means finding out what somebody else tried to do that you got to fix. A lot of that, right? And I did a truckload of it, from reshafting drivers. Right now, still on the shelf, I've got two. Let's see, I got a Rogue and I've got another Callaway hybrid. I just switched the shafts, and come to find out that in the bottom of these hybrids, there's this little, we'll call it almost looks like a weight, but it's more like a pin. And this pin is centering the shaft in this hosel because there's a lot of waggle going on. As soon as I put that pin back in it, it's solid. So that's something new. And then you get in there with the then you got to go in there with the ferrule that's going to fit, which they just don't have a whole lot of they don't have a whole lot of Callaway ferrules for that kind of stuff. So I kind of made my own, and so now I got to finish those off, and away we go. Another one, I've been showing this one off. I just like the way that this thing looks. This is the Srixon ZX driving iron. This is the 3, right? The 3, and it comes with the AD, and this Tour AD from Graphite Design. This setup is it's a winner, right? It's just a winner. And we're going to make it an inch long for the golfer, and we should be good to go. So we're there. The only reason why it's not gone out is we need a Jumbo Max Ultralight, and we're just waiting on it to show up. The minute it is, out it goes. So there we go. I think it goes to Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. So there we'll go with that. All righty. Next is, if you would, like, subscribe, hit that button across the bottom, hit the bell, whatever all that stuff is that you might need. in order to subscribe and get more of these videos when they drop. And that way, more of the word of this channel gets out. I'd appreciate that if you did that. Thank you. The other part is we still have we don't have a bunch left, but we do have some hats. Those types of hats, they've come with the ones that look like they've got twill are not that hot or not that heavy, but those are fitted hats. And then the ones where they are solid across the bottom, those are adjustable hats, which is I've got one on now, and it's a Velcro adjustable. So not much of a plastic or a leather strap kind of guy. So we've got that. Also, we're still in that month from Callaway for putting. So here's the QR code yet again. I'm going to leave it up there for about another 30 to 40 seconds. So get your phone out and hit the QR code, and that'll open it up to Callaway's website. It gives you some tips, tricks, and some other gizmos that are good for putting. Okay. So we got that out of the way. So like I said, we did a lot of repairs this week and not a lot of builds. We're actually getting quite caught up. However, this weekend was a fitting weekend. It's 12 fittings. Now that sounds like a lot, but it's 4 full fittings, so 2 a day, and that is a lot. And we went from anywhere from a young man that was 24 years old to another young man that was 74 years old. And when you look at the swing speeds here, I don't think you'll be able to pick the guy out. So let's get started and let's talk about some of this stuff. So let's go with this one and see what I'm looking at. Yeah, let's start with this one. So this one, if you look, this is also another case of not every driver that you get to is going to be better for you. So I use this guy's driver. He hit it to 212, 224 on the average, fairly straight. Hit it a little bit. He hit it at 143, which I would say is an average good, not super good, but average good. Swinging at 94 mile an hour and some low spin. Now the low spin is what gets you about a 12-yard run out here, and that's where we're gonna go. It didn't hit it as high as all of them, but got it out there, and it was considered straight. The second driver that came in was the Wilson TI with an Acura TZ5 and a stiff flex. And he carried 204, 118, 6 yards behind it, but the dude drilled it down the groove, right? And didn't hit it quite as well, swung about a mile and a half faster, hence this kind of setup. Then I gave him a Paradigm with a Kylie. There you go, Kylie, in a 60. Carried it out as far as his driver but it was a handful of yards short, but only swung at about a little over a mile an hour less. But the smash factor was just way better. However, the spin rates were through the roof. So there's all these things that you have to take into account, to the point we even used a Mizuno STX with a Vertex Blue, and it was way down here. Didn't hit it as well. I think we were starting to get a bit tired is what was happening. So it just goes to show that not every time you walk into a fitting that you're going to walk out with new clubs. Now, we talked about that, what was going on with it, and he was a bit wild with his club. And as it turned out, what it was extraordinarily long. And once we got him choked down on it, he actually started hitting it way better. And that was the part of it that was really kind of funny, because we started talking about where's your ball go? Well, it's a big giant fade, big giant fade, big giant fade. Well, that was because it was so long he couldn't get the club closed, and that's the reason why it went off to the right. Everything else in the club looked like it would work. So we had him choked down into the appropriate length once we found it, and all of a sudden he's lighting it up and he's finding the middle of the fairway. There you go. That's what you're looking for, right? So we just had to cut her down, put a new grip on it, and away you go. All righty. If we look at this one, that is not the one. So there we go. So this was the guy's landing area, and if we look at it, his driver is the green, which is right here in the middle, right? And then the Paradigm is pink, which was a little bit tighter. So it was a little bit tighter and not as, but not as far. Mizuno was all over the map. That just wasn't a good marriage up for him. And then the Wilson was light blue, and I think it was just there was a one really short that may have caused that one to be a problem. So, and those are things you have to take into account, right? And I always get, I'm always taken back to there was a another YouTuber that's out there that is a golf instructor, and he likes to dabble in club fitting, and he was trying to give club fitters down the road because they would only show them the best shots, and that's how you would find out, and that can be on the road to ruin, right? And so what I do is we take these shots and I show them, this is what you've done, and then I cancel out the ones that I think are outliers. And I've taken out really, really long ones. I've taken out really, really short ones in order to get a better average. And then we also discuss, well, okay, you hit 3 really good ones, you nailed them, and then there's this fourth one down here that's really, really short. I want to show you this before I take it out, because I don't want you coming away with this is the shortest that you've ever hit any of these, so that there's a bit of realism, but I still am giving them the best shots. But I'm doing that for every driver, so there's not a preconception I'm trying to sell a particular type of driver, of which I'm not. Okay? So, and that's what you get when you look at something like that. All righty. Let's see. And then here's another one, which was a gentleman was wanting to test out some hybrids. So we did. And surprisingly so for the golfer, swinging at 96 mile an hour, 205, 207, 203, 205. That's Wilson to Mizuno. And the Paradigm came in third on this one. Now, if we look at this, the Wilson was swung at the fastest. The Mizuno was the second fastest, and the Paradigm was the third fastest. Now, if you look at the smash factors were relatively the same, and could be the reason why those distances where they were, because the spin rates were, for lack of a better term, almost identical. All right, now what this was and this is another thing I do when I'm doing fittings, is that I will compare whether or not are you a hybrid person or are you a fairway wood person. And in this particular instance, he took the fairway wood, which he said was his absolute favorite, and he hit it, and every 4 hybrid went better than the 5 wood. So we figured out very quickly that he was not a fairway wood player, and that's what we played with that. And that was our friend in the middle. And then, not to be outdone, we get this young man. And this young man is 24 years old, and had him throwing it out into the yard. 321 was the best, and there was still room for improvement, if you can believe that. He's a young man. He was 6'4". Now, this is a classic, so we're going to go back here a minute. He was 6'4", had 1 inch over clubs, X100s in them, and in these irons, and had elbow problems, had back problems. And I'm like, what is going on with this kid? And he is just swinging. So if we look at the swing speed, this guy's creating 127, 128 mile an hour swing speed. So he's swinging his irons faster than most people swing their driver. Okay. And I'm like, well, why are you hurting so bad? And he just the idea of swinging that fast said, oh, no. Because literally he was smooth. Fast swings look aggressive because they're fast. However, when you look at it in the context of the swing, it was very smooth. And I was like, well, let's see if we can't do something for that. So we started with his irons. And this is a story. I don't have the thing on here because I didn't take the picture. But so I had him in blades. I had him trying the Mizuno 223s, 225s. I had him hitting the Wilson Club. It was really kind of nice. And I also had the older gentleman hitting these clubs as well. Anyway, so I started, I said, well, let's try graphite just to help you out with your elbows, your forearms, your shoulders, that kind of thing. So we went to a 115 shaft. Oh, let's go back. So I went and did I did a length test with this guy. And what I mean by is what length of club. Turns out he really just needed a half of an inch short. All right, a half of an inch short. So here's a young man at 6'4". Everybody just looks at his height and forgets how he's bending over, how long his arms are. He had a wingspan of an albatross. And they just assume he needed an inch over, and that's what he got around playing into the 80s with. Well, now I give him these clubs. We find out half an inch short is where it goes. Now his posture's better. His back doesn't hurt him. He can actually swing through instead of making all these moves in order to get to the ball. And now he's really, really comfy. Good. I give him this 115, the TZ from Acra, and he hits it. And he says, by far and away, the most best feeling club he's ever hit. And he's taking a 6-iron out to 230, 240. Okay. He's just creaming it. And I said, well, let's try 105. He goes, okay, we'll try 105. So we tried a 105 and he hammered it even better. He says, well, I got a new best here. I'm like, okay, new best. And he was out 240 all the time. And now he was making a pattern that was tighter. I'm like, ooh, we like this one. So now we're at the 105. And I said, just for the sake of let's find out where your diminishing returns are, let me try I got these new shafts, the new I series, and there's a constant weight, which means it's a little bit differently made. So let's try the 95. Okay. He puts the 95 in and commences to hitting the 6-iron out to 250 in a pattern, and in a pattern that you could accept. And I'm like, holy smokes, right? Holy smokes. So now, why am I getting to this? Same thing with the driver. Because he's swinging 110 to 150 mile an hour with an iron. If you just were to look at this guy's swing speed, you would think you'd need to go get an X-Flex, trip it down about an inch, hand it to him, and cut him loose. Where the 95 gram in this is constant weight. This one comes in a taper, and I didn't trim anything on it because it comes discrete lengths. So it's a 95 gram shaft, and it plays into the high stiff, low X range. High stiff, and he is smoothing this thing out. Like, oh, now that's important. So then we get to this. And if we look, I got him in a Wilson Carbon with a graphite design UB6S. That's a 60 gram S. And he's taking this thing out to 313, 321. Hits it with a 144. I would have loved to have seen this about 146, 147. This number would have been over the total number would have been in the carry number, and the total number would have been some crazy 330-ish type thing, or maybe even 340. Okay, and then I gave him a TI with that same one and still hit it pretty decent, but both the spin rate on the Carbon was just a little bit lower, and that's what we were wanting to see. Then we checked it with his driver, and we blew his driver out of the water, so there you go with that one, and that was very comparable. And then we got the Carbon with an XC6, which is a low spinning shaft, and he didn't hit it as far, wasn't swinging. He didn't hit it as well, and it wasn't necessarily low spin for him. And then that's how he was hitting those things. So the shaft that we want in the green, look how tight that pattern is at 320. I mean, that's just crazy good. So that's how important a fitting can be, okay? This is a guy that certainly by swing speed alone, you would think a dual X shaft, oh, he's really aggressive, which he's not. and that's what's causing him his back strain, his elbow problems, his control, everything's he's hit fades his entire life. Now he's drilling it. He's absolutely drilling it. And I gave him a stiff club. Now the UB, which is behind me, is kind of a beefy shaft. So the 6S is probably playing closer to, again, the top of the stiff and low in the X, which is what we were shooting for. So and to the point we went into, now that I had 95s in the 6-iron, I tried them on a KBS TGI 95, and he hit that thing and just absolutely slaughtered it. So it's the whole idea of, length, weight, and then start getting into the flex, and then we'll try and get from there. Whew. Okay. So there's my there's my soapbox for the day, and that fitting is very, very important, as we can see. Oh, and did you notice that the 74-year-old golfer had the same swing speed as like a 40-year-old golfer in the mid 90s? The dude was hitting blades and absolutely just killing them. I had him hitting a blade out to 165, a 6-iron blade. Well, no, sorry, 175. So yeah, we had him in the right. So it was pretty good. All right, let's get to some questions and answers. I got to get to the top. Matt says, no golf for him. Have you ever thought of tee height for a driver? What do you look for, and what would you teach someone? Tee height is incredibly important, Matt. And what I normally do is I start people. The thing that scares me the most is when we're in here, and you've been here, obviously, is when people pull that tee height and they try and get all that height they want, and then they ground their club behind it. And I'm like, oh, we are not doing that. I like my golf clubs in good shape. I said, tee that thing down, and I'll force them to show me that they can actually hit it off of an elevated tee. All right. Now, I'm going to go against convention on this one, in that, they tee it high, get those shoulders tilted, come at that thing on an upswing, and just watch it go. Okay, except for about 4% of the golfers on the planet can pull that off. And when they do that, how many of those little goose eggs you got on the top of your driver? And that's because you're normally not tilting. You're normally going straight through it, and you're popping it up, and you're like, well, where'd that ball go? Until it lands about where you hit your wedge. So what I do is I make them tee it down, and then we'll raise it up until we get to an optimal point. And typically the optimal point, I just happen to have a whole bunch of golf clubs and a golf ball. Typically the optimal point, and we're going to use this Wilson, and we're going to use this line. Now, normally what we would see is when you're behind the ball, let's see if we can make this happen. When you're behind the ball, you see about this much. Not this much, but this much. What does that mean? So if I have it right here, what I'm looking for is the equator of the ball now is about let me see if I can make this better. There we go. The equator of the ball is about 3/4 of the way up, not at the very top. About 3/4 of the way up here. And that's where that's where most golfers have success. Now, of course, I say that, and there's going to be one of you guys out there, I tee it up and I hit it just fine. That's okay. I'm just telling you from a most important. And typically guys that also can do that are the ones that hover clubs. All right. And they hover, you know how you would hover it over the ground. You hover the club, and this is on the ground, and they start like this high, and you hover it. And hovering is fine. Jack Nicklaus did it for years and years and years. However, what I think personally, again, that introduces a variable. So when you're tired, you might you might get underneath of it. When you're straight up, you might hit over top of it. Some people do fine with that. So for every, good or bad, there's always somebody that's going to be to the opposite of that. And that's the part we have to keep in mind as fitters. And as far as tee height goes, Matt, that's what I'm looking for, because I will test it for quality of hit. And then when you have a good quality of hit, what typically happens is your spin rate comes down. Spin rate comes down, distance increases, away you go. Okay. Michael says, Jim and Robbie. John Timmons, good afternoon, sir. How are you? Tee height is the half the format, half the tee on the face. I don't hit the ball, though, and that's it. Okay. That's it. Just like Manello. Emmanuel, what do you say? Good evening, Jim and Robin, and the golf gurus on here. Busy time. Bit did a chance. Busy time. Bit. Oh, did. I said, did get a chance to play last week. Shot a 79. Nice. Tony Finau and John Rahm are on fire in Mexico. Yes, they are. And I tell you what, John Rahm just couldn't keep his foot on the gas, and Tony Finau played wonderfully in that. But if you look, they both shot what? In the -6, -7 range on the last day? Holy smokes. That place was just ripe for guys who could bomb the ball. All right. David Jones, rain, and more rain. You know what? We've been rained on at least twice out here today. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one. Matt says, thanks to Michael. Yeah. We can always miss that. There's guys that take the tees and they'll make a mark, and that's where they punch it down to. That way, there's nothing wrong with that. PZ ordered the BGT yesterday. Did you get the custom one, the pro one, the white one, the red one? Which one did you get? Oh, by the way, this might be a bit of a longer show. Mrs. McGolf poured a little extra for me today. All right. I have golfers every day with tee height preferences. Some have two, low for finding the fairway and high for distance. There you go. And you know what? In the high for distance, those can both can be argued either way, right? Just like I was telling before. So here's another one. Let's say if this is the way that the club is supposed to hit the ball, right? But like a lot of golfers will do, goes like that. Right? It goes like it come into it like that. So now if you're aligned to here and you come into the ball and all of a sudden you're in there like that and it goes zinging off in that direction. And a lot of us do that, right? And so how do you fix that? Well, if you're not going to fix it in the way of not attacking at a negative angle of attack, you have to lower the tee height. So if you lower the tee height right here and you attack it, now all of a sudden you're in a good spot and it takes off in the right direction. So those are some things to consider. All righty. Willard, what do you say, buddy? It's been a while. You're right. Work interfering. Well, we all got to pay the bills. All right. Michael says, hit that thumbs up. There you go. Appreciate that, Michael. Thank you much. Jason says, his wife's taking up the game. Nice for you. He's only 5 foot tall. Holy cow, Jason, really? 5 foot tall? And I bet that is, you're like Goliath. So, all right. Since petite sets are hard to find to come by, what would be your recommendations? Depends on what you wanted to get into, Jason. As it is a hot topic right now, Callaway is releasing the BB23 Reva, which is a ladies set. And the ladies set, you can get them in modified amounts, right? Driver with a small amount of irons, maybe a hybrid or something. A putter, all in a bag, way to go. Or you can get a full bag, whatever you want. And these are specifically designed for ladies. They got a purplish tint to them in their color, so they're not pink and they're not red. And but their weighting and their lofting is a little bit more specific to ladies. And you could call in there and ask for them and tell them that your wife is only 5 foot tall and you need them shorter, and they should be able to oblige, no problem. And then they can just drop ship it to you. If that is not an option, then you can always go get yourself a set of regular ladies clubs at the local Dick's Sporting Goods or Golf Galaxy or something like that, and go get the ladies and then take them somewhere to go get cut down. There you go. Because typically what I find is the ladies that are shorter don't have necessarily smaller hands. and that you need to get the right grip. So that might be a twofer. Mike Wilson, greetings from Southeast Texas. Also summer here. Matt, I use my index finger as a reference. Once you've found the height that works for you, you will have it. There you go. Shoulder tees are kind of cool. All right. Drew's team lost in the final. What? Well, at least he made it to the final, I guess. Brandon McAllister, what do you say, sir? Hello, all. Can you please put an end to a 2-year debate between 5 buddies? Okay, here we go. Callaway Apex 21 Pros. Can I make this set one length? Oh, Apex Pros. Apex Pros, Apex Pros, Apex Pros. I'm going to say no. Okay, I'm going to say no. Now, there's one of the Apexes out there, and if we're talking about this, so here's where I think we're going to. And if I had my phone, I could show you. So there is an Apex out there, and it's a blade, and it has a knot on the direct backside of the club, if that's the one you're talking about. The Apex 21 Pros themselves, I don't think they have an adjustable weight on them. Okay, so the answer to that one would be absolutely, positively not. All right, we'll go over that. All this will fall into one reason why in a minute. And no, even with the ones that have the weight in the back, that too would be problematic at best. Okay, now why do we say that? All right, so in order for one length to occur, you have to pick, let's just for sake of ease, that you like the 7-iron the best. Some like the 8, some like the 6, but the 7. So you have to add enough weight, and we're talking about 7-gram increments that are typically heavier on heads. So if we pick a number, let's say it's 250, 57, 263. So about 264-ish would be a 7-iron. Okay. So the 8-iron would be 271, 278, 280 and some change and all that. So now we have to take out 7 grams, 14 grams, 21 grams, 28 grams out of the heads going down in order for them to weigh the same as the 7-iron. So that's going to be pretty hard. I don't think that they make a negative weight. All right. Which means that you're going to have to shave weight, and all of a sudden you start messing with the playability characteristics of the club. Going the other way, you have the 6, the 5, and the 4, and you're doing the same thing. You're adding 7, adding 14, adding 21 just to get to the same weight. And no, there's not a 21-gram addition. There might be a 12, but there's no 21. So you couldn't get that high. So now let's say for the sake of argument that maybe you could get these weights and you could make them the same. The idea of having the same club, and if you look at any of the single length sets, is that they all look the same. Now, pitching wedge does not look like a 7-iron. Oh, and that's the next part of it. Then you have to bend out 4 degrees, 8 degrees, 12 degrees, and maybe 16 degrees out of it. There is no club. Well, there is 1 or 2. But once you get past 4 to 6 on these clubs, because they're forged, you will run the chance of breaking them. And because if it's the Apex Pro that I'm thinking, it's a multiple piece, and that face could just pop clean off. So number one, you couldn't get the weight. Number two, you couldn't get the loft. You probably could get the lie angle because you could probably get away with bending the lie angle, and that's where it's going to go. So no, they're not going to act the same for a single length. So hopefully that helped you out. I get asked that question quite a bit, so that's the reason why. All right, Charlie, here we go, sir. Thank you. And it ended up getting a Glenfiddich 15 and not a 14. The 14s are out, the 15s are in. So a little bit extra change on my part, and we're both happy. Thank you. This stuff is amazing. This is Glenfiddich 15, by the way, in that same kind of cask. Smooth. But thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Hi, Jim Rom. I'm heading to Vegas for a tourney with 139 players. Wahoo! You good luck, man. Have a day. Manuel's making a set one length, not as easy as it seems. Total weight, turf interaction, swing weight. There you go. I mean, if you had access to a welder and a grinder and all that kind of stuff, yeah, maybe, but I don't think that's the intention. Bill Nauman, how are you, sir? Received the hat. Good. I'm glad you like it. Bob must be watching us from Facebook. How you doing, Bob? David Rogers, adjusted my 10.5 to 12. Man, does that mean I should adjust the other woods? Well, that sounded like a complete and utter toad, David. The answer would be maybe. All right. So the idea of going up in degrees is to get you a little more loft, get you a little bit more angle out there, and a little more distance. Good idea. But you also have the T, right? And the T is helping you in that. Now, if you're hitting from the ground and you have a different address at it and you hit it in a different fashion and it pops up in the air and you're getting the distance that you want, the answer is no, do not adjust. However, if you're looking at it and you're like, wow, it doesn't quite fly the way I think it would as far as height, right? It doesn't go up and then come down in the way, then yeah, sure. Give it an extra degree and a half. Well, you can't do that in most cases. Probably a +2, that way you can see where they're doing it and then adjust it up into that in order to make that go. But I would, first hit a couple fairways and see what's happening. CTAN1118, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you too. There's our buddy Matt from Hawaii. How are you? The guy that was 24, we were all hitting it about the same. He had a 9-degree as well. Sunny V, hopefully you're starting to thaw out up there a little bit, but this cold weather is not helping. Just got back from Myrtle Beach. Well, that's way better than being up north. 8 rounds in 6 days, missed 1 round due to weather. Love Thistle. I like Thistle. That was a good golf course. I like that one a lot. Brendan, Sky Toulon or Toulon, which is best if you had a choice? Oh. Well, Brendan, I'm kind of my experience with Scotties was just fixing them, so I've never truly had one to use or play with. Although I will say that I have, putted on like a practice green, and Scotties of like the Newport era, that kind of stuff, have an extraordinarily nice feel. Okay, very very nice. Now, as today's modern setups, I am totally unfamiliar other than the square back, which again is an older model and it is more aluminum than anything else, I think. And there it is. Toulon, I am ultimately familiar with because I'm a dealer, and so I know what that club is capable of. And it is a different. It is not a super soft feel like a Scotty. It is more feedback oriented. It still feels really good. It's just not the same. And I think what that is the difference between, I believe Scotty is he forges or presses in a lot of the club, and that gives it that softer feel. Where Toulon will get to a certain spot and then mill it, and I think that gives it a firmer feel. Also, he also puts that black finish on it, and that black finish gives it a slightly firmer feel as well. Now, the other part of this is that Toulon has embraced technology in that the stroke lab, right? The stroke lab of the graphite shaft and the steel, weight in the back, and a grip. Where in a lot of cases, when you see Scotty's, he is not. He has stayed traditional. He has stayed with the regular shaft. Although I'm sure he could probably aftermarket or get him custom. But the way the Toulons are built, that comes with. And now the other part is, if you like a funky head cover, Scotty probably, there's no doubt Scotty does a little bit better job at that than Toulon does. Toulon's more traditional in that matter. So if I had my druthers, and the fact that I'm a lefty, pardon me, I would have to go with the Toulon. All right. There you go. Very good. Golf Swings, greeting. Have a few questions today. Hope that's all right. Not a problem. How much length does the grip butt cap add to the total length when assembling? Well, again, Golf Swings, it depends on the grip. And it can be anywhere from an eighth to a quarter. It depends on the grip. There are some even in different models, right? Within our models are CP2s, right? The CP2 wraps, the CP2 Pro models, they have like a mushroom shape on the top, and those guys I have a much larger edition than, say, the 2G, which is a traditional grip, which is more of the 1/8, then which would be slightly different than the MCC4s. They're all just a hair different. Okay, so you have to kind of look at that into the build. I just assume in reality, and a lot, and Golf Swings, that brings up a good point. When you measure, it's to the end of the grip cap. That's the way to do it. But you'll find some people that some of these golf clubs are measured, instead of on the half increments, they're on the 3/4 and quarter increments. And that comes from cutting at like 38.5, it becomes 38 3/4, and so on and so forth. And that is raw shaft cut, where the company itself believes that 1/4 of an inch really truly isn't that big of a deal. And here I use raw shaft length, so I just don't have to mess with that. And it never goes over more than 1/4 of an inch. Now, can I do it the other way? Yeah, because what I do is I'll take a rod and I'll measure to the inside, and I'll take the outside and I'll measure the outside, and then I compare them, and then I know how much I can cut off. I mean, it's easy to do. I just don't do it. And because I'm more concerned about the raw length, which is what my test clubs are built to. So I go from my fitting to the test, and I know what I'm doing. And as I'm finding out, more and more companies are going that direction. However, if that's what you're looking for, then I would say you can measure it. And used to be an old heating rod. You can use a dowel rod. Put it in there to the top, and you want to lay it, because it will lay flat right inside there, and measure it, and just poke it out to the outside, and you can measure it on your length ruler. All righty. Salo, what do you say? Sanding shafts down versus reaming the hosel for a P79. What's better? Shaft is a TZ6 driving iron shaft. Well, in this particular, and only in the, because I'm familiar with this one, there's a lot of meat at the bottom of that club. And in this particular instance, I would say you would be okay sanding it down. Now, keep in mind, this is the amount that you really have to go from this to something like that on that club. Just this much of it, not the whole thing. just about the first 3/8 to a half. That's the part you got to cone. The rest of it, you just got to take the paint off, and that's it. Now, if you were not wanting to impact the integrity of the club at all, I would ream it. Okay, it just depends on your feelings on it. And I've said this before, the shaft, if the shaft has a smaller hole on the tip section, and there's a lot of meat there, you can carve it out and not impact the way the club will play. And you can get it in there. A lot of people are like, "Oh, we can't do that." Yeah, you can. And even the shaft manufacturers will tell you so. Now, if you have a larger hole and a thinner wall diameter, then no, you can't do that. And that's normally ultralights, lighter weight shafts. So if this TZ6 was, you only got one. So if it was, let's just say you came in a 50-gram shaft, the hole in the end would be very, very big. And no, you couldn't. But if it's an 80-grammer, it's small, and yes, you can. Now, what's it take to ream out a 790? Very little, because again, you're just getting that last bit of it, and you're only going to remove a gram. So it's not like you're not going to impact swing weight, and the shaft may fit just way better. But in this particular instance, if you're doing it at the house and you're doing it, then you could probably get away with just knocking off the edge, making sure, and then getting just enough in there so to slide in, you'll be fine. That's where I'd go with that. Golf swings. Looking at the 1150 GH shafts, they seem to have an interesting profile, stiff tip and butt, and a soft middle. Which type of golfer does that suit? Any comparisons to other shafts? Pardon me. I do like the GHs. The 950 obviously is their most popular model. That's what they started with, and the 1050, and then the 1150. The 1150 is a little bit more for the I won't say the average guy that can pull down on the shaft, but is not aggressive, right? If you had like average swing golfer, smooth swing golfer, and aggressive swing golfer, this would be at the average to slightly above average, is where I would put that one. And it will feel very, very soft, by the way. All righty, we got more. They have shorter raw length, and I play +1. The only problem might be issue if I stop set the da. And you're right. These are short. If you're going 1 inch, you will just barely make it, particularly if you're using the grip. You'll just make it just barely. You'd be putting them in and go. And they're made for that, all right? They're made for that length. Now, the reason why at the pitching wedge is quarter inch shorter is because if you look, a large portion nowadays, like the Titleist, some Callaways, and there's 2 more out there. I just can't, the names just elude me. Anyway, the pitching wedges start at being a quarter inch shorter than the 9-iron. And that's the reason why you get that. I'm thinking about this one. No, if you soft step the 9 into it, you would soften the pitching wedge by a third of a flex. So if you're playing to the top end of the range, you could get the 9-iron of the next flex higher, and then it would literally translate back down. You could do that. That would probably work out pretty good. I play stiff and ideally don't want to soft step the whole set with extra stiff shafts. Trying to keep the weight down is okay. There we go. We just talked about that. You could probably get away with it that way. There he is. It's been a while, Bubby. What do you say? T height. Dude, T height. Sevy, what do you say? Hi, Jim. Is the Pro Modus 105 stiff a good shaft for a Titleist T200? Well, I'm a big time Motus fan, so I could tell you yes. Now I will say, the 105s can play stiff. Now, what do I mean by that? The profile is so the 120 is a soft profile. The 115 is a stiffer profile, and the 105 is more like the 115, only lighter. So that's where you go. But yeah, it's a good shaft. And in the T200, yeah, it'll play. It'll play fine. In fact, the 105 is out here where we're at. The 105 is a shaft that we use quite regularly. All right, last question. Any info on True Temper's TT Light XL iron shaft? Discontinue now, but I may have found some. It's around the same weight I'm looking for. Any info on the iron and how does it compare? It is nowhere near the 1150 GH golf swings. It's just not. The TT XL Light is calling it the Light XL is a misnomer. It is not lighter. It's in that 115 to 120 gram club. It is very much a down the middle of the road shaft for a lot of golfers, and it was an economy shaft for a lot of OEMs or builders that wanted to keep their costs down, and that's where it goes. Now, there were some OEM shafts that the TTXL were identical copies for. So in the past, like for instance, like a Uniflex for Callaway, that would work really, really good. One of those RS shafts, the TT would do very, very well. But if you're playing a stiff profile and you're putting them in a decent set, I would seriously stay with the Modus. Darren Montel, what do you say, sir? Haven't been a while. Hey Jim, left eye dominant and always aim right of the hole on short putts. My buddy. I've tried many styles, but the same result. Are there certain heads or shapes or combos that might help? All right, I got to think about this. I'm going to assume you're right-handed, so I got to think about this. So you're left eye dominant, so it's your forward eye, and your aim right of the hole on short putts. Well, here a couple of things. Again, I would question whether or not you're actually seeing the line anyway, and that would be based on how you stand over the ball. All right. So if your eye is over the ball and if this is the ball and your eyes are out this way and you're putting either way, it doesn't really matter. And over the ball, you're probably not seeing it very well. Okay. If you're inside the line, if your eyes are inside here, you're in pretty good shape. But now, if you're way back here, you may not be able to see them, and that's the reason why you have to aim to the right. The what you're telling me is, I think it sounds like you're over the ball. I mean, your stance is too far over. That would be my first inclination. Now, let's assume that it's not. If it's not, then what I would look at, your forward eye dominant. So what you have to do is you have to look behind the ball and then get to the hole in order to see the line. How can you get around that? You could use something that has less offset. I would, just for the sake of trial and error, I go to the local golf shop and find something that is, pardon me, has very low offset, maybe even to the point of being center shafted, because most of those are straight in, and see if that doesn't help you a bit. Try that. All right. There we go. Prince Edward. Very good. Hey, Spencer, what do you say? Had a great time at the fitting. Super informative in general. This is the young man that hits it to 330. All right, this is him. All right, Jim, another question nobody mentions. If AT Black Shaft is any good with the Titleist D300s? I rarely see any black shafts come in. I'm normally putting reds in or even whites. So, and T300s are extraordinarily forgiving type clubs, as I understand it. They're their distance C clubs. And the blacks, if I understand this one correctly, those are the ones that are the beefiest. So, no, I would not put them together. They would tend to fight one another, I would think. As I understand it, it's red, white, and black, I believe. That's how I would do it. Now, all things considered, T300 being the distance club in the T lineup, you would think that it would come with a softer shaft that would be allow you to get a little bit of kicks to send that thing in the air, even with the stronger lofts and whatnot. They're nice looking clubs, though, I will say that. All right, Eric, what do you say? Cleaning my clubs, I noticed a gap between the ferrule and the hosel. These are fairly new clubs. Is this normal? Well, I wouldn't say, Eric, I wouldn't necessarily say it's normal. However, it is not uncommon in that if you leave them in your car, leave them in the garage, that they get exposed to some extremes in the weather. That plastic tends to get soft, expands, get cold, get smaller, and eventually it will come off. So what I like to do is uh, initially the first time through, what I would do is just try and push it on. And because I have a speed clamp here, but if you had a regular vise or some line, you clamp it, and you put it so that the ferrule is just right on the edge, and you just get it small enough to where it's not grabbing the shaft, but it's still stopping the ferrule, and then you just push it. And if it's just the ferrule, it'll push right on, no big deal. Now, if it happens again, you know how to do it, but I take a little piece of super glue, just one dot, press it back on. Good to go. Now, a way to talk is make sure it's not just the ferrule, is set your club down with your grip the way that you had it, and make sure that this thing's not turned one way or to another. Right? A lot of times they will give and they will turn. And if it's turned, take it to a place, take the head off, re-glue it. Yeah, we're not exactly close. You're correct. But that would be cool, though. PZ ordered the Polar White. Those are cool. I'll give you pluses on style points there, bud. What's your info on flowing it? Just logo down it, dude. Logo down it and have some fun. Good deal, Spencer. Keep an eye on it. Michael I learned with persimmon and laminated woods to tee half the ball in the face. Now with bigger metal woods, I agree with you, Jim. Well, thank you, sir. Ryan Crow, no rounds this week. We need a break from this weather, dude. I am totally in agreement with you. I'm tired of seeing here as of late in the last. Here it is, May. It's just now hit May, and I haven't hit the first round in Ohio yet. That's gross. And here's the reason. Because I'm working this job and another one. We work through the week and it's 60 degrees, 70 degrees, beautiful weather, go golfing. It gets to the weekend when I'm off and it's 30. It's raining, it's snowing, it's doing all kinds of weird stuff. I like to get this around where it's really crappy weather while I'm at work and then be really nice on the weekend. And I will we got to give props to Mrs. McGolf. As you guys know, I've got a Rectech grill, a pellet grill, and we changed the wireless modem. And my Rectech works via Wi-Fi, so we can start it and check temperatures and whatnot. And for almost a month, we couldn't figure out what in the heck is going on. So while I was gone, I asked her, "Hey, can you look that up?" She calls up Rectech. A couple minutes later, she does her magic, voila, and she says, "Try and turn it on from your phone." Well, I'm 30 miles away. tick turned right on. That was awesome. So good job, Mr. McGolf. Sallow, what do you say? Sanding shaft down versus Riemann. Yep, we already talked about that one. All right, you're in Python length. When you have a player that is uber short, do you continue with standard height chart, or what point do you transition to a junior chart, or vice versa for that? Well, so what I do, PZ, see these right here? These are ladies' clubs, but they go down to a 35-inch 5-iron. All right. And then these are standard for that. And so what I've done is I go to 36-inch 5-irons with my standard stuff, and I go to 39 and a half. And then on the lighter stuff, I will start at 37 and go down to 35. Pardon me. Matter of fact, I might actually go to 34 and a half. I have to look. Anyway, it's very, very short. And then I let him hit that. I don't use a chart. I use a demo club in order to get where I'm going. Now that was a long time in the making too, by the way. In finding, because around here we do have some shorter people, and sometimes the shorter club works really, 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 really well. Now the hard part is balancing the club because it's so short, right? The grip will be going into the logo. It may not look very neat, but it works. The other part is that normally these short folks have standard size hands. So or even for ladies, I fit from ladies that were just under 4 foot, and we had to use men's grip, and it just looked like a fungo bat, but it worked, and they like golf, so I'm okay with that. Michael Taylor, what do you say? Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the videos. You really helped me, especially ones doing the bore through drivers. My father bought an old Big Bertha. Ooh, nice. There you go. Well done, sir. Yep. Used it this evening and nailed it straight as an arrow this evening. Keep up the fantastic work. Well, thank you, sir. And that's not wrong either. Michael Taylor, look at that. All right. There's Bob. He's watching from Facebook. Thank you, sir. Randy Mahoney just got a Toulon, Las Vegas, and love it. There you go. Very nice club. Nice day in Florida. Ha 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 ha. That's so funny. Northeast England. All right. Very cool. All right. Love the show. Learned a lot. There you go. Well, no problem. I'm glad you're here. Michael says, hey, don't miss whipping and fixing hosels on old persimmon wood. Don't I miss? No, not in the least, bud. What a tedious little task that is. That is a tedious task. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I still have that was a 5 foot, I think it's a 5 foot heating rod. So what Michael is asking here is, when we talk about persimmon, they had that string that went on there. It's called whipping. And it's a nylon thread of sorts, and it's a little thicker, and you wind it up. Well, there's a technique in order to do that. You start it with a tail, and you hold on to it, and then you whip around it, and then you have to put this little bit of a tool. You don't, the really good folks don't have to do that. I had to do it. It was just like a little wire U, and you would run another piece of string through it, and then you would wrap around it, and then you would pull the string through, and literally you were tying this thing to the golf club. And then you would slice off the extras with an X-Acto knife, and it would look really, really cool, and you'd rub it down with a wooden handle. It'd be super duper cool. Now, the wooden shafts use what's called pitch. and it's a linen string that's been dipped in tar, and I have a roll of that as well. And it's been ages since I've done that. Now, sometimes you have to take the club apart. Well, you just can't run your heater or your butane torch on the outside of a wood. You had to heat it from the inside. And what they had is these heating rods they were 4, 5, 6, they were 5 foot long, I believe. And the end of them, about this tall, was all made to take a load of heat. So you would take a torch and you heat this thing cherry red. And then when you got done, you would run it down to the bottom and you would let it lay on there for a while. And you could hear it tink, 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 tink. And you would do it 2 or 3 times. And eventually, what happened is you'd just be able to pull it straight out. I can't believe I just remembered that. Dean Anderson. Clubs are beautiful. A Paradigm driver is amazing. Well, I'm glad you like it, Dean. First round hit 9 of 13. 3 or 4 missed by a few feet. Longer I was hitting. There we go. That's what we like to see, buddy. That's what we like to see. Paul, what do you say, sir? Hopefully everything's feeling all right. I canceled golf league tonight. Cold and rainy. Myrtle Beach may be May 13th, 20th. Fingers crossed on the weather. Yeah, we're in that time frame, aren't we? It's half in, half out. The good thing about Myrtle Beach is that much like East Coast weather, unless it's like this tsunami or some kind of really bad storm, it normally floats in and floats out. So hopefully that helps. It works for you. And oh, by the way, from a Wilson perspective, bud, the Dynapower is a real deal. So you know. All right, finally received my left-hand ping 311. Hitting it further than my 2-red 6 hybrid. Holy moly. Now I have to figure out what I should buy, the 6 or take the current 6 out. Well, it would depend on whether or not you want to hit it further than the 5. Good for you. Randy's talking to Dean about the Paradigm. Been busy here since my dog didn't have puppies. What? Been doing a bunch of other things and working. Well, good for you. You'll like this one. You'll like this one. So, since the last time you've been on here, and I really don't like crossing over jobs, but this is a little different. Oh, I'm getting the signal. My new groups are all emergency service oriented. That emergency service oriented. So I got all the fire dogs, which are EMTs and paramedics. I got the incident commanders, and I got emergency management now. So I'm basically home. William Muff enjoyed that emergency build last week. Was that not cool? That was a really nice build. I really liked it. In fact, the gentleman is sending us some more to work on. And I don't know if he needs an emergency build on it or not, but that could turn out to be another one. My dog Rex, hit that thumbs up. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that one. He needs to figure out YouTube. Hey, did Penny get an iPhone yet? Tony Brown, how much has the line goal changed in irons over the years and why? You know what? That is a good question. It really, really is. And honestly, I would say not much. All right. So lie angle is attached to the length of the club. And if everything being standard, it's been a 38-inch 5-iron for years to, you can almost say decades, a decade at least. Now, it used to be back in the days, and I will say probably mid 60s to mid 70s, a 5-iron was probably 37 and a half. And then it jumped to 38 with the newer styles, the newer technologies, that kind of thing. And then it's been 38. And then it's half-inch increments until you get down to the pitch and wedge. Just like we were talking, now we're starting to see quarter-inch increments, and that's a whole nother thing. But at the bottom end, 64 degrees, 63 to 64 degrees on wedges has always been a bit of a standard ever since I've been building, and that's been for somewhere in 20 years now. So it really hasn't changed too much. Now, as you get taller or you get shorter, that that lie angle will change, right? So for every half of an inch of change, you'll see a half a degree of change in the lie angle. So there you go. Brandon, only live 2 hours away from your shop. When can we come in? Or after guys, should we wear golf shoes or regular? It depends on you, bud. As long as you're not wearing work boots, tennis shoes are fine. If you're more comfortable in your golf shoes, then bring your golf shoes. And Dean Anderson's he's playing the standard paradigm, and he is. It was a good matchup. Didn't have to move stuff around too bad. Didn't have to change a whole lot of stuff, so it was very good. All righty. With that, Dean gets us down to the very bottom. So, if you would subscribe, subscribe, hit that bell across the bottom. Take a look in the library for what we got. If you're interested in a hat, we still have the hats that look like that, fitted and adjustable. We still have the divot tools that are available as well. And keep an eye on the channel. We'll be releasing a video. We're going to be talking about wedges. Like always, guys and gals, thank you for watching, and let's see your scores go low.